we will move on to item number 8. That's a library master plan, a framework informational update. Again, the public comment period is open for this item. If you've already joined the Zoom webinar online or by phone, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. If you're watching on City TV or the live stream and would like to call into the meeting to speak, please call 1-669-254-5252, and when prompted, enter 16017-2331#. So with that, staff, please introduce yourselves and proceed.
Good morning, Chair Montgomery Stepp and council members. I'm Misty Jones, Library Director, and with me today are Raul Godinho, who's Deputy Director for Library Operations, Jill Eyres, who's Architect and Senior Associate with Group 4 Architecture, Research and Planning, and Carson Block, Founder and CEO of Carson Block Consulting. As many of you know, the last master plan was developed and adopted in 2002, and libraries have changed quite a bit since that time. Libraries are no longer just warehouses for books, although books are still a vital part of our business. But libraries have grown and are now community centers, workforce training centers, digital hubs, and resource connectors. The last plan did not account for the expanded role of libraries, the exponential growth of our neighborhoods, or for the ever-changing technology. This is why not just an update, but an entirely new plan is so crucial to the future of the San Diego Public Library. And as with every plan for the future, the first step is to assess where you currently are, and that is what this document aims to do. There are some general recommendations, but I want to point out that this is not a comprehensive planning document. That will come later. This first document is an assessment of the current state of the library network and provides some guidance for achieving the library's vision and goals. If you are not aware, my goal is to be the best library system in the world, and this is the first step to getting us there. It was commissioned by the San Diego Public Library Foundation, and this plan was developed through collaboration with library staff, other city departments, stakeholders, and community groups. The master plan framework is built on analysis of the public library's experience, innovation, and successes, as well as input from thousands of community members, stakeholders, and city and library staff who participated in the process. The draft of the plan is up on the library's website, and we are accepting feedback, which will, along with the feedback from today, be incorporated into the final document. So you'll now hear a presentation from the consultants, Jill Eyres and Carson Block, and I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Misty. Hope you can hear me okay. Thank you, Madam Chair and council members, for this opportunity to share highlights of the draft master plan framework for the San Diego Public Library with you. This presentation is largely the same as the one we've given at the 2 recent public comment sessions for this process, with a few clarifications in here in some of the areas where we've received public questions and comments in particular. The purpose of this process was to create a guide for decision-making about future library improvements in San Diego, what we call nicknamed Phase 1 of the master plan. There was some disappointment among the public commenters that this draft doesn't get into any branch-specific recommendations, and it wasn't intended to. It's going to guide the analysis of those branch-specific needs and opportunities in Phase 2, including issues such as the parking lot issue at the College Rolando Library that Ms. Hintzman brought up during public comment earlier in this meeting. This Phase 1 process began in early 2020. It was originally supposed to be about a 12-month process, but COVID happened, which stretched out the schedule a bit. That actually provided us with a really good opportunity to see how the San Diego Public Library responds and innovates and adapts in real time to things that change in the community. And the extended timeline gave us a little bit of time to shift our community engagement strategies. We had planned to do more in-person engagement, and we moved all of that virtual. That said, Carson and I have worked on plans like this across the country, and it's rare to see participation this robust. It was really wonderful to see how much the community came out in force to share their ideas about the San Diego Public Library with us, despite it being mostly remote. Surveys, working groups, focus groups with community members and stakeholders and library staff. Misty and representatives of the foundation did a roadshow through traditional and social media, neighborhood associations, community groups, podcasts, to build awareness of this planning process and opportunities to participate, such as in the survey. I wanted to note here that this isn't the end of the community's ability to participate in planning for the future of the libraries. Phase 2 is going to include a lot more opportunities as well, so never fear. Misty mentioned the previous master plan, and the improvements that have happened guided by that plan have had a wonderful impact on the network of the San Diego Public Library. Wonderful new landmark central library, more than a dozen newer improved branch libraries, few more still in development. The result at the end is 80% more library space and a lot more opportunities for service in San Diego. That said, 20 years of library building has left some areas of San Diego with more library space than other areas. More than half of the branches haven't been improved yet significantly, or weren't considered all in the last plan, which was really focused on expanding space to keep up with population growth. Many of the branches that weren't improved are in San Diego's older, less affluent neighborhoods. Many of them are small or very small, crowded. It's difficult for them to meet community demands and needs. And many of them have moderate to significant needs for maintenance, as was established in the 2016 FCA study that the city commissioned. It found at that time, in 2016, more than 50 million in backlog just for those branches that hadn't been touched by the last master plan.
The library expansion projects over the past 20 years didn't add enough space to stay ahead of population growth. Over that time, the needs and the priorities for library services, technology, and collections also grew, and they diversified. As well, demand for space in libraries to work, to collaborate, and to gather is only growing. The San Diego Association of Governments has projected 20% more population growth over the next 30 years. Now, this projected growth will put even more strain on San Diego's libraries. Next slide, please. The San Diego Public Library is a highly creative and innovative organization, but serving their community also requires resources. The library's budget hasn't increased nearly as much as the amount of space that it now operates. Now, even with big contributions from community donors and organizations, including the San Diego Public Library Foundation and the Friends of the San Diego Public Library, the library's operating budget is still significantly less than the California state average. What this means is the library's collection is too small to meet community interests, particularly for materials in multiple languages, as well as new and popular titles. Library technology is insufficient and it is outdated, especially in the neighborhoods where it is needed the most. And library staff are stretched thin and don't always have the time, training, or tools to meet patron needs. And thinking about the library's collection for a moment, one public commenter that we had remarked how they put a hold on a book and saw that they'd have to wait for more than 100 other people to read it first. Now that's a wait time of about at least 1 year or even more. Next slide, please. This plan provides a framework for an equitable, resilient, and high-performing network of libraries for San Diego. This framework is also specific to San Diego, of course. Now, while it was informed by library trends, best practices, innovations from around the globe that we keep track of, it leverages the experience, the strengths, the innovations, and successes of the library's experience in serving the San Diego community and the different communities within San Diego. It also incorporates the ideas and inputs of thousands of San Diegans who participated in the planning process.
So some of the principles and strategies that'll guide the future decision-making, every library in the San Diego Public Library network should provide that wow experience. It should be a delightful place that people come to, they find what they're looking for, they find something they weren't looking for, and it makes them want to come back over and over again. All the branches can and should prioritize the specific library service, technology, and collection priorities of the local communities that they serve. There's no one-size-fits-all branch that's going to meet the needs of every San Diego community. And people throughout San Diego, north to south, east to west, told us that they're interested in a lot more library programs and events. And every branch in the network should have appropriate space to host group meetings, gatherings, library programs, community events, all of those good things that the community looks to the library for. Framework proposes a new population-based metric and targets for branch library space that will provide more room to grow programming, technology, collections, and other library services along with the population. It'll build equity and access to library space throughout San Diego, and it will provide flexibility to adjust the plan along the way if the population grows differently than is currently projected. Framework proposes a minimum size for new and expanded library branches. That recommendation is something that the public commenters have been particularly enthusiastic about. The library data that we looked at from pre-COVID times did show that your bigger branches really do provide more service to more people and more cost effectively. And since COVID, those are the branches too that have had a much easier time reopening safely. So expanding and replacing the smaller branches with bigger ones where it's possible has been a great strategy for the city over the last 20 years, the last master plan, and we recommend that that strategy continue moving forward.
Now, support for the plan is crucial. More funding is needed to operate expanded facilities and services, and that need will scale with population growth. The city has been proactive about involving the community in library projects, and there will be plenty of opportunities for the community to participate in phase 2 of the master plan, looking at facility-specific needs and opportunities. Continued city support through direct engagement and facilitating community engagement is encouraged to continue in the next step of the master plan.
So far, the public review comments we've seen, lots of love for the library, very positive outlook about the library and its future, and a lot of excitement to dig into the branch-specific opportunities in phase 2 in particular. That draft plan is still up. It's still available at the link here on the screen. It's also available in the supporting documents for this agenda item. And we are still welcoming public comments on the draft. So we really do look forward to everyone having the chance to read it and tell us what you think. With that, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation and for your patience. I'll turn to Chloe at this time. Is there any public comment?
We have one speaker in the queue, Lori Saldana.
Hi, could you please reset that?
Apologies, Ms. Triplett, I couldn't hear you on my end, so if you could just unmute and start over.
We'll have Marianne reset. Our first speaker is Lori Saldana.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please make your comments.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you so much to the library staff. The services are essential. So many students, when I was teaching for the community college, relied on libraries as safe places to study, to do research, and so I'm really happy to hear that they are being improved, and I hope we get a lot more money to invest in them, maybe through some of the infrastructure funds, because they are essential educational infrastructure. I comment a lot on our people experiencing homelessness in San Diego. Many of them use the libraries, and as our temperatures increase and we don't have cooling centers, librarians, unfortunately, are de facto counselors for people that have no place to shelter out of the heat. So I just, again, thank you for the work that you're doing for the libraries, for the communities, and for people who don't have any place else to go as the temperatures are increasing outside.
Our next speaker is Sally Small.
Hello. I just wanted to say thank you. Yes, the libraries are very needed, especially in District 4. I'm grateful to have the Malcolm X Library as my neighborhood library, but I do attend other ones, pre-COVID anyway. And I would like to say that if we can get the budget going next round for the library, we'd love to see poor little Oak Park that is so busy on the computers, but is so teeny. So I know that they were supposed to get some money for round 1. So thank you, and I look forward to being able to give my input on the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes public comment on item number 8.
Great. Thank you again to the public who has called in. We'll turn it over to committee members. We'll start with Vice Chair Campillo.
Thank you, Chair, and I want to thank the Library Department, Group for Architecture, Research and Planning, and Carson Bullock Consulting for bringing forward the item today and for working to update our library system to serve the residents across our city. Jill, Carson, Misty, and Raul, really good presentation. In my district, the Serra Mesa, Kearney Mesa Library on Arrow Drive, Tierra Santa Library, and the Mission Valley Library have reaped the benefits of investment and renovation in our excellent focal points in those communities, whether it's to drop off a absentee ballot or surf the internet, find a place away from the heat, or take part in any number of excellent programs. They are really well trafficked and well deserving of the praise that my constituents give them. There are other libraries in District 7 that didn't get that attention over the last several decades. The San Carlos Library, going to ring that bell for as long as I live, the Allied Gardens Benjamin Library, and the Linda Vista Library. They're all in very serious need. According to the draft master plan, each of these libraries have not seen significant renovations in 35 years. And so the master plan notes that the San Carlos Library is one of the top libraries in our city for material circulation, but is rated as one of the lowest libraries in terms of condition and growing backlog. Our librarian out there, Mr. Eggy, can only serve the community as well as the resources and materials and building that he has to work with. And I know he does a great job, but we really need to do better there. The previous library master plan in 2002 recommended that the San Carlos Library be replaced by a newer, larger library that could adequately serve the community's needs. And I think that saying 2002 is even short on the time frame. I'm pretty sure it was closer to 1992 when plans were put in place. The number one marker of that is the discolored sign for the new San Carlos Library that so many folks in San Carlos point out to me. I know that it's now 2021, and so this library is still yet to be built, and the residents of San Carlos and all of the eastern part of San Diego, and especially the entire Navajo community, uses the San Carlos Library, and they've been promised that flagship library. So I'm going to continue to advocate for it. We need to do better and invest in libraries, not just there, but really across our entire city. And this is not something that's new. Our budget review committee hearings were filled with comments about how we want to invest more in our libraries. And I really appreciate the mayor and our fellow council members of mine for advocating for this. As it relates to San Carlos Library, as soon as we receive a letter from Stantec, who is the expert who's looking in or is essentially developing the environmental letter that will say that there's no further action required for environmental mitigation, as soon as that letter is finalized and published, I look forward to moving before the council as quickly as possible a purchase of that land. It's somewhere in the low $100,000 range. So whoever set up that deal back in the day for the city, I really appreciate them for setting the price, because we know that that would be very, very significant, much more than that value these days. And ultimately, so that we can move on and fulfill a 25-year plus promise to my residents and constituents out there. Overall, I'm very excited about what the new master plan addresses in terms of maintenance, in terms of staff, in terms of programming, in terms of resources, because we all want to see our children thrive in the city, and an excellent public library system, which we already have, but we know we need more resources for, is at the cornerstone of that, so that we can have equitable service across our entire city. And so thank you to all the presenters, and that concludes my comments, Chair.
Thank you. Let's go to Committee Member Whitburn.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to each of you for the presentation, and to the many staff and stakeholders and community members who are part of the process to develop this master plan framework. I appreciate all the crucial work that our library staff do every day, especially during the pandemic, providing access to technology and resources for communities in need. And I also appreciate that this framework was developed with the goals of equity and access in mind. Our communities that lack access to library resources are often those who need them the most, whether it's a computer or internet access to work or study, or simply a clean and safe place to spend an afternoon. So I look forward to working with my colleagues and library staff and stakeholders on solutions to the challenges identified in this framework and making the San Diego Public Library a world-class system. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Committee Member Whitburn. I also want to thank you all for the presentation. You know, we see libraries as the great equalizer in our communities due to the amount of resources and opportunities that they provide for bridging the digital divide to providing cool zones. Libraries continue to provide services to anyone who needs them. And I want to thank the department for acknowledging that the Oak Park Library wasn't on the list of libraries in need of improvement, but is now a central focus. And I also want to thank those who participated in focus groups to provide feedback on our libraries and how they can improve. During the Q&A sessions, there were questions about investment, as the same with public comment today. So with that in mind, will investment best practices from different municipalities be provided within the report or within the implementation phase?
Jill and Carson might can add to this as well, but yes, absolutely. So we're looking at, they're going to benchmark a lot against other library systems and how they have achieved the goals of, building new buildings and deferred maintenance and all of that. And there's some really creative things I think that we can do and some out of the box thinking. And so that will be incorporated into phase 2.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that answer. And we know that the library ordinance has been on the books for years. Year after year, we're unable to allocate the mandated amount of funding, and we see that. We see that our communities are suffering because of it. So we have to revisit that, and I'm looking forward to the creative things that will come from this phase 2 as to how we can invest in our libraries and meet those needs of our community members. Thank you again for the presentation. We certainly appreciate it. And again, thank you for your patience.